Hi everyone, thanks for watching. I'm Simon from Homesite, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of creating a Lovelace interface using a 3D floor plan. Now hopefully you've already watched part 1, and we're going to use all of those graphics we've made to put them into Home Assistant and make a really cool looking Lovelace interface. So let's go! So in part 1 we created a floor plan using a tool called YAML. We used a tool called GIMP to create some lighting overlays. We used a tool called Gravit to create some vector icons. Now we're going to use all of those into our Lovelace interface. We're going to use those lighting overlays to indicate when the light's on and off. We're going to use the graphics that we created in Gravit to turn lights on and off. We're going to use those as buttons. Now I've gone ahead and created a few more things as well. Now I've customized the floor plan that we created in YAML, and I've put a panel down the left hand side which I'll show you in a minute. I'll also put all of the graphics in the description below in case you want to use any of them. Now this is not my house, this is an example house that I drew for you today. Now I've also used some input booleans as devices instead of turning lights off and on in my house whilst I'm playing. Now you can do that as well if you're wanting to set them up without annoying the rest of your family or your wife, or if you're just wanting to put a light in there in the future, and you can put a placeholder as an input boolean in there as well. Now I'm going to put all of the config in the description below, and so you'll need to edit your config.yaml, your configuration.yaml, and put in some of those input booleans if you want. You'll have to make sure you've got something like Samba installed or a way of transferring files. Now we'll do all of that fairly quickly, but there's previous videos on how to install Samba, how to install file editor, how to use configuration.yaml in brief. So hopefully you'll take something from this video and you'll give it a like down at the bottom. Hopefully you'll subscribe as well to make sure you don't miss out on any new videos that I release. So I've already spoken way too much, so let's start taking a look at this config. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the assets that I've created, all of the graphics, and add them onto my Home Assistant. So here on the left you can see this is my local hard drive, one of my E-discs. This here is my desktop. I like to keep my desktop nice and tidy. So I'm going to put over here // and the IP address of my Home Assistant, which is 192.168.100.88. I'm going to go to config. And if you haven't created www already, because it might not be there by default, just create a folder called www. In there, you can dump various things. Now I'm going to create a folder called Lovelace. I'm going to take you briefly through the assets that I've created. Now, obviously, this is totally customizable, and the idea is to give you the confidence and the ideas to have a go yourself rather than just copy mine. Now, I've got some avatars that I've created. I've got one for me, and I've got some pink and blue ones for the rest of my family. I've also got a home and an away version. So you can see here there, the home is a fairly good likeness of me-ish. And if I open up the away, it's a grayed out version. So I create that in GIMP as well, just by creating a filter layer over the top. So they're my avatars, my floor plans. You can see the progression from where I started out here. This is the original one that I created from a screenshot from YAML. And if I go to the right, you should see that I've added this panel here on the left hand side. And if I go again, you'll see that I've added these 5 little sort of indentations in the top, and that's where I'm going to put my home and away status with my avatars. And I've done the same with my ground floor, with add the panel with the circles at the top. So they're my rooms. Now I don't necessarily need to keep all of those onto my Home Assistant, so you might just want to put the last one that you want to use. Here are my icons. Here are all the icons I've created. Again, these will all be, if you look in the description, there'll be a link to all of these for you to be able to download, as well as the native file in Gravit itself. Overlay. So these are all the lighting overlays. For example, the lighting in my main office looks a bit like this, and you can see that actually you can imagine a wall going up here, and this is the overspill from out of the window. I've also created some PNGs. Now you'll see that this looks like a static PNG there, but if I actually open it in Chrome, you'll see that actually it's changing. It's a graphic. Now this is a a TV lighting effect, which again you'll be able to find in the description, or you can create yourself. If you look up how to create a PNG as an animated PNG, you'll be able to find that. And there's a PC overlay as well, which is just showing some light coming off of a monitor when I use that in the office. Now we can rotate these round, so you can use these in multiple places and scale them. So I've got 3 different TV overlays there, which I like to use. That's enough about that one. I've also created some weather icons there because I want some custom weather icons. So all we're going to do now is I'm going to use this same folder structure that I've created here and simply copy them, copy and paste. Now the next thing I want to do is test to make sure that I can get to these externally. So if I drag in a Chrome window, I can put in my IP address 192.168.1.8123. Now I should be able to put in /local/ you don't need to use the config bit, but / or the www bit. I should be able to put /local/ /Lovelace. Oops. /avatar. I'm just going to press enter to that, otherwise it's going to lose my progress. If I go to avatar there, and if I put, I'm going to look at this one here, just going to copy that, /, there we go, and there I am, ta-da! So that shows that I've put it in the right place, it's externally accessible, and I'm going to be able to use it in my Lovelace interface. Right, so that's the first step done. So the next thing I'm going to show you very, very quickly is how to set up all of your input booleans that we're going to use for these tests. Now you don't have to do this if you've got real light bulbs, real devices, real monitoring, real tracking. You can use all of that natively from your actual devices. Now I'm going to give you all of these. Now some of the ones I will point out at the top, some of my real ones are alarm state, home occupied, house guests, and automation state. Now these all work with Node Red. This is how I set my alarm. This is the my presence detection. House guest is so I can disable the presence detection sort of part of my automations, and my automation state so I can turn all the automations off or back on again. Now these are all my test components. Now I'm showing you all of this in Notepad++, which I really like personally, because you can do cool things like setting the language that you're working in. We can say this is YAML, and it will put things like the comments in green, and it will sort of tab them and show, and you can minimize sections like the input booleans, for example. Now if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I've also got this input select. Now this allows you to select the floor plan. That's something cool that I'm going to show you in a second. So you need to set this up to have, so your input select is the domain at the top. First tab in is select floor plan, and then we've got the name of floor plan with the options of ground floor, first floor. Now call that first floor, second floor, however you want to do it. You might even have 3 floors, 4 floors, I don't know, basement you might want in there as well. So all I've got is a ground floor and a first floor with the initial state as ground floor, so that's going to be my default, and I've put an icon as floor plan as well. So we're going to copy all of that, or as much of it as you want, and put it into your configuration.yaml, however you might do that. Now I really like the file editor add-on, because it makes it nice and simple. It gives you that validation checking as well. So we're going to copy all of that in, and then we're going to check and reload. Once you've done that, it's ready to move on. So let's get stuck in. Let's take our Lovelace interface from the default, once you've added a load of devices, looking like this, to something like this. Now first of all, we're going to go into our configuration. We're going to scroll down, find Lovelace dashboards, and I'm going to create a new dashboard. I'm going to create one called demo 2. I'm not going to bother giving it an icon, but you can. I'm going to show it in sidebar. I don't want it to be admin only, and I'm going to hit create. So now you can see that I've got this. I've got my overview, which is my house. I've got demo 2, and I've got Lovelace demo. Now Lovelace demo is this one that I've just shown you. Now this is the one that I've been working on for a couple of days to get just right, so that I can turn off lights, I can see whether the door's open or closed, I can turn on lights. I've actually tied the TV one, I've cheated for this demonstration. They're looking at the same entity, so that when this light comes on, the TV comes on as well. And I've done the same with when the office light is on, it shows the screen is on. Now you can have those as entirely independent. We can turn the lights on. I've got automation states here, so you can see that these guys here, these three are lit up. These two are sort of semi-transparent, which indicates that they're not home. We've got an automation state here, which we can turn on and off. We've got an alarm state on and off. This is the presence detection, which will turn on and off automatically. House guests, heating. I've got a couple of cameras down here. Now really it's the same camera and it's just there, so not a lot of good, but you can add, all I'm trying to show you is multiple things that we can add to this. Now we've got this panel here as well, so we can add our weather, we can do all sorts of things in there. So that you don't want to see that anymore, let's take a look at this. So this is my demo 2, the Lovelace interface I've just created. I'm going to click on these three little dots up here on the right hand side and edit dashboard. And it's going to say you're about to lose the ability for Home Assistant to add everything in by default. So as soon as we hit take control, it's not going to add things to this default view anymore, but let's be honest, we don't want this default view anyway. So I'm going to create a new one here. I'm going to call that home, save, and I'm just going to delete this, delete that view. Awesome. Oh, one thing I didn't show you on here, we can toggle between our floors by clicking on this G here. We go from ground floor to first floor. Now I think that's quite cool. Took me a while to figure it out and make sure you get the structure just right. But I think that's quite a nice little feature. It means you don't have to be jumping around between multiple tabs up here. So we're starting with an empty interface. Now if I click the three little dots, edit dashboard, I can create. Now you want to create a picture elements card. Now it gives you the example of this floor plan here. Now if I just press save, one thing I didn't do, when we need to edit this tab up here, we need to change this to panel mode. Now you'll see the difference. You'll see that this is just a box within the whole frame. If we click on this little pencil here, we can go to panel mode, and that's going to make it full screen. Now this is not good. We have to scroll up and down. This is what we want to try and avoid. So you want to make sure that you get the pixels, the size of the image, size of the background, the right size. Now the way I always do that is once you've got something in there, if you do take a snipping tool, or on a Mac you can use the grab tool. If I'm going to do new, now I want my image to be around that sort of size there. So if we were to open this, I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to open this in Photoshop. I'm just going to go new and OK, and paste that in there. So we can see that size, that's the size of our screen that we want. Now if I go to Control Alt C, it brings up canvas size. Change this to pixels. So you're looking for something, I mean, I like this is about 1837 by 916. That's roughly what we put our floor plans to earlier on. So that is how I settled on the size of my image. Now, if you're okay with scrolling, maybe you want scrolling, maybe you want your ground floor there and your first floor there. I don't like it. I want it on one screen, nice and simple. So if I go back into my edit dashboard, I can scroll down to the bottom and see the little edit that pops up down here. So we can see type, picture elements, and then it adds all of the elements underneath. So we can see that we've got this state badge entity here, which is sensor devices where I live. We've got a style and then a tab. Now, if you're not familiar with YAML, then this might be a bit of a steeper learning curve than it might be for others, because the spacing of this is really, really important. And you don't have the massive window to do this in. Now, if I were to copy this state badge, for example, now I'm going to have to press backspace, backspace, backspace. Now it will tell you if you've got a band indentation, and it will tell you on which line. And luckily they put these line numbers here. So you can see here that type doesn't quite line up with entity. So we need to move this back one more space, and all of a sudden it's worked. Now the way that you move things around on your floor plan here is by changing this bits under style. So it's a percentage from top and left. Now the advantage of it being a percentage is it doesn't matter what size the screen is. If you were to use a specific number of pixels, if you were to view it on your phone, it's going to have a different resolution, or if you were to view it on a bigger screen or a smaller screen, it's going to not look the same every time. So the advantage of a percentage is it's all relative to the size of that image. So I'm going to say let's change this to 50, 50, and I'm going to move it to the left a bit. One obviously hanging off the screen, so you need to go 2, 3, 4, 5. So you need to really fiddle with those numbers, and sometimes it depends how picky you are. Now I'm quite picky, so I want things to be lined up perfectly, and the spacing I want them all to be sort of equidistant between devices. So if I were to have these two, I might want that one to be 50 as well. And I want that to be off to the left. So I'm going to go, oh no, sorry, wrong one, 6. I want this to be 16, and see how that looks. No, that's not enough. 17, 18, oops, 19. So that's quite a nice spacing. So then I typically work out the difference between this one and this one. If I were to put another entity, and I know I'm adding the same entity for now, but this is just an example and how to sort of start working with adding these things. So again, I want the same, top is 50%, and we go from 19, see this is where it starts to get confusing, because actually what I want is this one here, I want that to be at the top. Now it makes no difference because these aren't overlapping. I'm going to find out the difference between 19 and 6. Now I make that 13. Now this is where you might get your calculator out and you go 19 minus 6 is 13. So 19 plus 13, or 13 plus 19, is 32. So that is our figure we put in here. Now that was obviously not a particularly difficult sum, but in the example that I use, I've got like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, so sometimes it's just easier just to use a calculator, but and create a grid of your alignment of your icons, especially on this left hand panel, which we're about to use in a minute. So the next thing I want to do is to change this background image. Now this is obviously downloading this one from this URL here. Now we could put the URL, and we proved that we could navigate to our floor plans earlier on, or the avatar we used as an example. So we could put in the full URL, but we don't need to do that. Now if we look in our, so this is my floor plan folder on my Home Assistant, and if I take Lovelace / floor plan, and if I put a backslash at the end of here, I can, if you press up and down, if you click on it, it will open it. But if you navigate down using that, your cursor keys, I'm going to select Lovelace floor plan, and I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to delete this default image here, including the quotes. We don't need those if we're looking at a local image. Now I'm going to paste what I've got in my clipboard. And before that, you need to add local backslash. And there you go. You can see that that's popped up with my ground2.png, or I could change that to first. But for now, I'm just going to stick with ground. I'm going to press save. Let's have a look. Now, sometimes you have got a bit of a scroll, but remember you've got the edit window open at the moment. So if you click X, you can see that that work fits nicely in that window there. Now we can see that we've got these icons here, which we don't really want. So let's start changing some of those. So I'm going to come back into my edit dashboard, scroll down, and behind where I'm sitting here, there's an edit button, which I'm going to click. So I'm going to remove these items here, but I'm only going to remove the first two because I just want to make sure I get my spacing right. So it's space, space. Now I'm going to paste in something from my clipboard, but again, when you paste in, sometimes you get the spacing a bit funny. So you can see that title's not in line with entity there, which it needs to be. This hyphen here, if I click on that and press my cursor key down, it needs to be here. So delete, delete, and in theory, the wheel should stop turning. See that wheel there? That's showing that something's not quite right yet. We've got bad indentation at line 8. So it's really important that you get your spacing right and that you be able to sort of tweak and fiddle with it. So now I've got that, I'm going to get rid of this one here and bring that straight up to elements. Now you can see, hopefully you can see here that this has now appeared. So if I'm going to press save to that, and then I'll come back to it and talk you through it. Now this is pointing to an input boolean for the office light. I can click it on and off, and you can see it's changing those icons from a grey to the indicating off, and to this white and yellow with this pendant sort of logo for the light indicating that it's on. So if I come back to edit, let's just talk through this a minute. So we've got the entity, we've got the title. Now if we can, this is interactive as well, which is really cool because it means we can play with it as we go. Now if you press and hold, you can see we've got demo office main light. If you hover over it, you can see office main light. And if I change that to text, so I can add text at the end there. If I hover over it now, you can see that text has appeared at the end of that. So that's where that takes effect. Now we've got different actions. Now I'm just going to move this around a minute. This tap action, I'm just going to move it up here. Now that's got no functional use, but it means that you've got hold action and tap action nicely together, right? So if we hold, we get more info. So if I press and hold, you can see that it's got little blue circles just appeared. Now that's going to pop up with this more info. You can see the history on some things. You can see when it's turned on and off. You can turn it on and off there as well. So there's your history. Now if I tap it, it'll toggle, so it'll go off. Here's the image. The default image is the off image. And then we use this state filter part. So now this might have different states. It might have an on and an off and I don't know, something else. If it was a person that you were adding as an entity onto here, might have home and away, unknown. So you can add as many state filters in here as you want. Now I've got the, and this will modify that graphic essentially. So I've got the brightness at 80%, saturate 0.8, so that's the saturation when it's in the off state. The on, it saturates it to 1.5 and turns the brightness up to 130 to make it really pop. Now the state image as well, we can change that state image so we can have on, so we're using that on icon, so it's the same. That's got the white and the yellow background instead of the grey background in the off. And we've got this styling. So left 49, top 31, and width of 3%. Ah, that's a new one, width. So earlier on when we were looking at that weather sensor, we didn't have widths. So let's take that out and see what happens. Whoa, that's its native size. So this is 500 by 500 pixels, which is probably a bit overkill. But yeah, clearly it's a bit big. So we need to scale that down. So we add in this width, colon, and you might want to play with that. You might want to say, well, actually I want it to be 5% of the overall size. You might want some icons bigger than others. Now I like consistency. Now on this layout, I think I use 3% absolutely everywhere. So if you're wanting to, you think, oh, actually I want that a little bit lower, remember you just need to increase the value for top. You get to 32, and you might go, actually I want that to be a little bit to the right as well. There we go, because it's just off center. No, I want that to be there. And you can put in increments as well, decimals, 31.5. When you're being really picky, when you're trying to line up your overlays, that's really important. And it will take you a while to get your overlay lined up. So talking of overlays, let's add one in. So all I'm going to do is press enter underneath here. I'm going to press paste. Now I need to sort out all of this spacing because I've just pasted it from somewhere else and clearly the spacing's not quite right. Okay, so the wheel stopped spinning, we've lost the errors, and it seems to be okay. Now, oh, I've added another style in here, but we'll just take you through this from the top again. So this is the entity. So here we're looking at this input boolean.demo underscore office main. So now in reality, this is likely to start with light dot and the name of your light. Now, like I said earlier on in the video, in my example, I'm using all these input booleans. So we're looking at the same one here. I've called the title office lighting overlay. So if I hover there, you've got office lighting overlay, tap action. Now I don't want this to have any action. I don't want you to be able to click on it and do anything. Now how do I know it's there? Because I did it earlier on, but in reality it's going to appear somewhere. So you're going to need to turn the item on for it to appear. Because the image here, the default image is a 1 by 1 pixel transparent PNG. So it's a tiny little dot. You'll never find it, obviously. But we've got this state image, and when that is on, it's using this light underscore office main PNG. Now that's the one I showed you earlier on in the video. So it's a sort of a semi-transparent orangey glow with the overspill out of the windows as well. So after our state image, we've got style. So we've got our left, our top, our width, and our opacity. Now, when I created it originally, I thought it was okay. It looked okay when I was doing it in GIMP. However, I've changed my mind. I want it to be slightly more transparent, slightly less orangey. So I've put this opacity to 0.5, which means it's 50% transparent on top of the existing transparency that we did on the original image. Now then, so that looks pretty cool. So in theory, if I turn on this light here, this should appear. So let's turn this light on and have a look. Now I'm going to do this on a different interface I've just got set up here very quickly. So I'm going to turn all of these off for now, and I'm just going to turn on my office main light. Now if I look here, we can see that that overlay looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. But now I can't click my button. Why can't I click my button? Well, if I click on edit again, you've got to bear in mind when you put your elements onto your interface that it matters what order you put them in. You can see that this one here, the icon, this little circle, the button, is drawn first. It works top to bottom. So it puts this on first, and then it puts this element on here. So you can see that, so you can imagine that this overlay is on top of the icon. So we need to move that up here. Again, careful with your spacing. So now, if I press save, brilliant, that looks, you can see that that's physically on top, and I can click it on and off. So that looks pretty cool, right? Now I realise that you guys aren't going to be starting with a full config, unless of course you looked in the description below and taken mine. However, you're more than likely to be copying piece by piece, moving it around. So how does that look? Now I've just copied this entity here, which is the icon for the little button. You're going to press enter, you're going to paste it in underneath. You need to check your spacings right. Again, if it's not, you need to make sure it's tabbed in left or right. I'm going to call this hallway. And to start with, it's going to put it in exactly the same spot. Now, as we know, as I've just explained, this is going to be on top at the moment. Now we're going to change this to be our input boolean or your light. Now I'm going to call it hallway. Let's just check what I've called it in here. So mine is called input boolean demo underscore hallway underscore main. I've changed it to hallway main light. I'm actually going to change it from a pendant to a spot. Now I know what my icon is called. I know that I've got one called spot, but you might need to look that up as well. Now we can see where it is. We can see that icon's changed. It's very small, but we can sort of see it. Now I'm going to change my top percentage. I'm going to go up to 40%, and you can see it's moved down to here. Let's change that to 45, 46, 49, yeah, 49. Maybe I'm gonna go up to 50. Oh no, it's too much. 49. Yeah, looks about right. I'm gonna stick with 48. Again, you can change the width, you can do anything like there, and I can turn that on and off. Ooh, does that work? Let's just check. Spot off, spot on, save. And that's not changing. Let's just have a look in here. I've got my entity wrong, I think. Let's just have a look in this one. See what my entity is called. Hall demo, hall main. Edit this. Demo hallway. There we go. Get rid of that. And I should be able to then click it on and off, which I can. And we'll do exactly the same thing with the overlay. Now the overlay is not quite as simple, because so if we take this overlay here and paste it in underneath, again I've got no spinning lights, which is cool. I'm going to look up what my hallway is. It's called light. I'm going to just rename that. Rename, by the way, in Windows, if you weren't sure, press F2 and it's a little shortcut. I'm going to copy light hall underscore main.png. So I'm going to put that in here. And if I turn hallway on, it's not showing it. Because I haven't changed my entity for those of you that were watching. So I'm going to take my entity down here, and which one is this? There we go. Hallway main, so I need to put my entity there. And you can see that I've got my sort of illumination up here. So I need to move that around. So 45, it looks like it's a bit too far. It looks like it's a bit too far to the left at the moment. But actually it probably lines up on the right. So I'm just going to move it down for now. So let's try 30. No, let's go with 40. No, maybe a bit more, 45. Now, you can see it's over the front, it's coming out the front door as well. It's sort of up to this side. So we need to change that width. Now bear in mind that each of your overlays are all going to be different sizes. So you're going to be adjusting that width every time. So I'm going to go down to 25. I need to move it to the left a bit. So I'm going to go, to the right a bit. So I'm going to go with 50. Still looks a bit too big, so I'm going to take that width down to 20. That's starting to get there. Now this one doesn't have any hard corners on. When you've got hard corners, it's even more important that you get it right, so it lines up with the corners of the walls. This one's just showing us 3 different spots, so I think that looks alright. But if we press save, we can see it's a bit high still. So we can go in and edit that and just drop that down. But the size is the really important bit. And every time you change the size, you're gonna have to move it up and down, left and right. It's a bit fiddly, but once you've got it right, it's definitely worth it. Cool. So there we go. We've got 2 working lights. You see this one. This one's got the corners lined up just perfectly, so the size is just right, and the windows line up. So now, if we go back into edit, we can see this is starting to get a little messy. Now we've only added in a background and 4 entities, so it makes perfect sense to start putting in some comments, right? So if we put hash like we normally do with YAML, we can put hash, this is going to be our office main lighting overlay. In fact, we could put here, why don't we put an extra break in there like we can in config.yaml. We can do, this is the start of our overlays. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to put it down underneath here, put an extra couple of line breaks in. And I'm going to put end of our overlays. So now we can start to put some structure to it. We can start to see what's going on. Now I'm just going to copy all of that for a second. and press save. So I've put my comments in, starting to give it some structure, make it look right. I'm going to press save. Successfully saved. Great. Now if I go back into edit, all of my comments have gone. How annoying is that? Which is why I copied it. What I suggest you do is take Notepad++ and build up your config in there. Now, one of the cool things again before, like I've showed you, is if you go to language, YAML, it'll start to put these lines in for you so you can start to tab everything in correctly. And you can also keep your config. Now, if I copy this in to here, again, it's got the comments. We know the comments are going to disappear, but we can keep them in our configuration file, which we store on our PC, on our Mac, or I actually store a copy of this in my Home Assistant, because then whatever machine I'm working on, I can get to it. Now, I'm going to show you my config for my demo system, as in this one, and it's pretty long. See, at the minute we're on 74 lines of code. Now I am at 777 lines of code for the demo system. So when you're at 777 lines of code, you're going to want comments in there. You're not going to want to be diving through, finding the different sections. So I've just looked at how long so far we've got, and now we're at about 45 minutes, which is way too long. So I'm going to stop there and do a part 3 very, very soon. Now, one thing you'll notice is that I use that toggle for different floors. Now that's the very next thing that we're going to cover, because that's quite important that we get that in right at the outset. So you can carry on and create all your overlays, create all your icons. Please do it in Notepad++ because it makes life so much easier. And then we can insert our toggles and the other stuff onto the left-hand side as well. So hopefully you've liked this video. If you're still here after 45, 46 minutes, then great, that's amazing, thank you. Please like this page, please subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any new ones. I've been Simon from Homesite, thank you.